The presentation today will first briefly introduce who we are and where we are, also because over the last 2 years, a number of things have changed and we have also repositioned the company. But basically, I will focus around the emission we had here in 2018, a preferential rights emission where we went out and raised money for a number of things. I'll talk about the rationale, I'll talk about what we want to do and how it affects the company and the overall strategy. Finally, I'll sum up with a bit of headlines pointing forward to 18 to 19. Where are we going and what do we intend to do? The company was founded as a Danish entity, a spin-off of a little bit larger company, of a platform where we can make recombinant proteins. The 3 founders took it out in 2010, and at that time it had been worked on and patented for about 10 years. In 2016 we were listed on NASDAQ, and finally we've had an addition recently, last year, with the company, a joint venture called AdaptVac, which adds a virus-like particle, it's called VLP technology, in which we are targeting vaccines and larger ownership of those, and the first product is in breast cancer. I will elaborate somewhat more on that later. The company itself, initially, as was written on the last slide, focused on vaccine development. Today we take in also immunotherapy, diagnostics and research tools. This change to a larger platform and a larger market segment has been a natural path with the technology we have and the competencies the company have. We're located in Sweden, where we have the main office, and the actual operations goes on in Denmark. And I've taken in on the map up here, Copenhagen in the bottom is where our collaboration partner NextGen Vaccines in the joint venture are located. So AdaptVac has address at our company site in Hørsholm, which is a science park. But actually, part of the work goes on in facilities at University of Copenhagen, where we also have access to instrumentation and facilities a company like ours would not afford to run. We are an established company, and we are now around 16 persons. We'll add a few more, with a large group of customers and collaborations, returning customers that come back over the years. This is only a small segment of those we can talk about, but it also shows that we are a global business. Even though we are Danish, we don't operate much in Denmark in terms of the customers and collaborators, except the University of Copenhagen. We are all over the world, and that also is a very different sort of company than starting up a local company somewhere in Denmark, Sweden, Scandinavia. I will have one slide that goes into detail about what is it then actually we do. If we look at different kind of diseases nowadays, what one often do in the vaccines that we are looking at is that you identify something that is the actual protein that makes people sick or can be blocked to stop the disease, and that's translated into DNA. And we have this platform called Expres, where we have S2 cells, thus the name S2 in Expresion, which can produce this protein. This is a platform we have been working on for a long time, and this is where we have know-how and we have all kind of competences that are hard to copy as well as patent. By the end of the day, this can result in vaccines or diagnostics, as well as we sell kits, we sell licenses, we make cell banks, etc. Now, the interesting part here is when we added AdaptVac, how does that fit? Where's the synergy? AdaptVac is different. AdaptVac take the virus particle you see on the left upper side and actually strips it from whatever is making the disease. It empties it, and then we put proteins on the outside of it. And that translates into very efficient vaccines. And the synergy here is between these two platforms, we can produce the protein part. We can produce the specific element, and we can also, as a company, use this VLP technology in our own development and in collaborations with customers. Looking at it in a more business way, this is how we position ourselves with AdaptVac in the bottom. Looking at the market we're in, it is really a very big market, and it doesn't make sense to talk about market sizes as in the upper left. Vaccine market is at $30-something billion going to 50 in 22. If you look at immune oncology, where the AdaptVac breast cancer project lies, this is a market that is predicted to land around $100 billion in 2022. Now, the interesting part is, of course, not the exact size, but this is big markets to dwell into, and for a small company like us, it requires focus and it requires excellence, which we believe to have, and to find a niche in here to take money out. Our basic platform, and I'll come back to yours, has resulted in a number of projects that are ongoing. And as you can see, doing services, doing licenses, and having products, and doing collaborations is referring back to the title of this presentation. We do have a revenue, we do sell things, so we do finance part of our own, partly business operations. At the same time, we are now starting to invest in a balanced manner in high-value assets. That will lead me to the next slide. We went out in the spring, this is February, and said we will run a preferential rights emission. At that time, we had it 57% pre-subscribed by existing larger shareholders and some of the owners and management. We had a subscription rate of 157%, 158%. And then we have a allotment for 99.85% was through the preferential rights. I'm only mentioning this because this is, according to our advisors, actually a record to achieve that, and I see it as a sign that we have loyal shareholders and we have a high interest in the market. We also got some new shareholders. Our first institutional investor was the Swedish Growth Fund, which I put up here as well. And by the end of the day, it brought us 19.2 Swedish kronor, which in biotech is not a lot of money, and that's because we don't raise this to drive a product to the market, but to lift the existing business. At this time, when we went out, the question was, why are we raising money? We have signaled everything was going the path we wanted. We had, since the IPO, we have raised the revenues through a very targeted marketing and sales campaign. We had also, in all the fields we pointed on, actually gone on the right path. But the point is the company lacked working capital. To expand a company at the same time that you want to invest in growing it is, when you also expand the business, is a very narrow business case to make. So what we wanted to is focus on 3 areas. We want to accelerate the core business and revenues. We wanted to secure an optimal value development in our new asset, AdaptVac. And finally, we think that we have a large potential due to opposition for acquiring new high-value assets. To explain that a bit more, accelerating the core business and revenues. We had increased sales and revenues through a targeted campaign. We have also seen that sales was driven by and more or less proportional to our sales activities. A good picture of this is that we have markets in Australia, we have in the US, we have in Europe. We have one business development salesperson, and presence at conferences and meetings are very crucial, and there's only so much time. And secondly, these markets or these customers, if we talk about large pharma customers, talking to one part of the company has nothing to do with talking to another part of the company. So basically, if we could put more efforts into this, we believe, and we have shown that, we could also generate more revenues. At the same time, we were starting to see some new market segments that could have our interest. So the conclusion was that we lacked the capacity and the resources to actually fulfill and to pursue these opportunities. So after this emission, we would like to go out and increase the sales and marketing resources and activities. We would like to increase our capacity a bit, which also has to do with the figure on the upper right. We are in a business where what we do is complex processes. And there is simply a lower limit to where you can do things in a feasible manner, where you get a proper overhead. And we are just beyond that limit, and we believe with this insertion we can reach that level and actually also make a feasible and viable business. And finally, we have had some internal product more or less on hold because we didn't have the resources to actually develop them. We would like to do that, and that is what we're going to do. Now, what does this core business lead to? We've talked a lot about, and I know the recent year, the breast cancer project has caught a lot of attention, and that is clearly also something of large potential, but the core business has led to a number of very interesting projects. We are having some funding still from a Eurostar with Abera and University of Copenhagen targeting Zika and HPV placental malaria vaccine. Then we had an arrangement with Abivax, which is also still running. This Abera, the Eurostar project will end in 20, so it's ongoing. Abivax, which come up on the right, was a touchdown into biopharmaceuticals instead of vaccines. As this is an antiserum like for snake venom, you have an antiserum which is, as showed by this little figure up here, you actually generate antibodies in animals and then you put them into people. And the difference from a vaccine is you have immediate protection instead of having to raise an immune response. Then we have made strategic collaborations, and one that we have published is Intravac, which gives us access to GMP production, which is required if you want to use the material in humans. And finally, we got a patent approval in India, again, of the general platform, which is consolidating an important market for us in the future, as a lot of vaccines are developed in this region. We have a couple of malaria projects which has been going on in a large, it's not us who have them, but we're involved in one in a consortium, which is a placental malaria on the left, under a Framework 7 program. On the other hand, the Jenner Institute of Oxford has developed a blood stage malaria vaccine. I'm not gonna enter into the details of this, we have presented that previously, but the interesting part here is both are in clinical trials as we speak, and we're expecting a phase 1b result for the placental malaria, which is malaria type you can get if you're pregnant, even if you are immune ahead of that. And the blood stage malaria is a more generic one. We're expecting phase 2a results, which of course is the most interesting part here and which also have some commercial impact in case this is continued. Finally, we also have a collaboration with the Jenner with the WEHA Institute in Australia, another recognized player in the field for development of other malaria vaccines. And what you can get from this little figure in the middle is that malaria is a very complicated disease and it is attacked in many ways, and there still is a large need for vaccines that work in different segments. Now, new core business, in this case, we have published that made a collaboration with the US company IBT, which is in their own doing infectious diseases, but they also have a device or a reagent department. And we made a multi-product agreement with them, which led to that we recently could say the first product is on the market, which means an Ebola glycoprotein produced on our platform is now sold on the market. This is, compared to vaccines, of course, not a high income market, but it is particularly interesting also to make this kind of arrangements, both because this is the entry to people who are developing vaccines and also into diagnostics. We have also made an agreement with a different company, Sedermeradagen from Germany, which develops diagnostics. The same thing on terms with a multi-product arrangement. We haven't seen the first products, but the interesting part, and I let some money float up here, is that this is not defocusing, as some have asked me, are you losing focus here? Because we allow them to use our platform. The Ebola glycoprotein they made at IBT, and they put it on the market, and then they send money. And that is a different kind of thing. But if you look at the figures here, we're talking about when fully implemented, the IBT deal will be around 1 million Swedish kronor a year. The 2.5 million, is putting down on the bottom line. So this is very important. AdaptVac, no doubt this is a high-value asset, and it has a pipeline, it's game-breaking technology, it's synergistic with our technology, and we have a lot of possibilities here. But basically, we don't have the capital to sustain the process we're in, because where we are is that the first project are out there for partnering. And I think that anybody who's looked at these kind of, and this is early products, the more data you get, or the more time you have, because the large companies have all the time in the world, the more value you can create. And that's basically what we are going for here, by putting in and supporting the development of the first breast cancer vaccine and the partnering and financing, and then again, putting on more resources into getting the next project in line, and at the same time, to put in a bit of sustaining IP, which always improves the value of the product. The status is that we're working into a market that are big, and basically it's dominated by monoclonal antibodies. You have 2 monoclonals that sit on 90% of a market that is considered to be in the order of 8 billions in 15, going up to around the same size working forward to 10 billions in 22 from some, and 8.7 at others. This is hard to predict, but the point is, we think we have a very competitive product. We have a proof of concept that has shown that this works in a humanized model. We have a project, we have put out an NPV value, a risk-adjusted net present value at 100 million plus. With the proof of concept that we have, it's even plus, but we will not. The NPV values, I think you've all heard. You can make a lot of numbers, but it's at least this and then some. And we are working well forward, and we have good interest. And the point is also that this is very competitive to antibodies. The market first had from Roche one antibody. They had 60% of the market. Then the same company added another one, and it works better as a combination therapy, showing that a vaccine that makes many antibodies potentially would work better. And some of the results shows that this potentially could also be rescue therapy for people who are refractive to the normal antibody treatments, which is a strong competitive situation. All data has been published, and you can find them in an article from this year. So you can check this in case you want to see what's actually in it. Then we'd like to acquire additional value. I will not dwell long with this, but we do see, because we have unique connection to academia and commercial and anything in between, very interesting cases of high-value assets. There's one example that's partly sad that I will mention because it was real. You may remember that we came out, published a collaboration with Vaccinate, and basically they went down soon after that. And they sat with the technology, they were invested millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. They had a clinical program running, and they had very specific technology, and by the end of the day, we couldn't do anything because you have to act fast when these things happen, and you have to be agile, and you have to have the money. So we would like to go out and find candidates for this. We will identify, monitor, etc., and then we'll go in. Now, if we take this and say, well, it's very nice, how do you think this will crystallize? We looked at what was required and what can we do in case we're able to raise the money. And what we look at here is a scenario that's the pre-emission scenario we had, where we were looking at 2-digit growth rates over the next 1 to 2 years. 2-digit growth rates is what we reach somewhere in between 1 and 2 years. Subcritical mass, which means we can see our revenues are not really equaling our efforts, and we'd like to do something about it. And then the delay of new products. We simply just have to say again, they were delayed if we didn't have the money. Our target is to have AdaptVac partnered within the period, but only one project. And this is, we're talking to big players, and there's a lot of work in making this kind of deal. So focus on one with the resources we had. And then again, new assets, we kind of shelved it, even though we have seen a few others that we have interests in. but that will have to be done. Then we got the money. And we can see that we do believe that we can double our revenue base within this period we're talking about. We do believe that we can get to the critical mass. We have hired a couple of persons in, and a couple more will come on. We also had some instrumentation that makes the whole process more effective. And then basically, we have some very interesting products in the pipeline that we aim to finalize and get 1 to 2 products on the market to sustain the core platform. The core platform is not only something we do that comparable to only or to doing only products or vaccines, normal biotech. This is our platform and entry to our contact with the larger pharma, to the mid-pharma, to the academia. So having a solid platform on one hand is basically a very strong consolidation into the business. On the other hand, as we extend the platform through strategic alliances and through collaborations and through more products, we also have a platform which enables us to develop products cheaper and faster and better than the competitors. And that, of course, we aim to do. AdaptVac. In AdaptVac, we have the potential of generating products, again, 50% ownership, but that is still very different from having a license and royalties and milestones on products we have helped to develop. In this case, also when the products are in this size of valuation where we're talking and in the markets we're talking about, this is a substantial value creation. And that means that we do look forward to having 2 projects partnered within this period at least. And we're not talking partnered into having grants with collaborators, which we will try to do. We always seek all the grants we can. It's non-diluting funding. It helps us, but we can't budget on it. And the aim here is, of course, to have commercial partners involved as early as possible. New assets. We are looking towards 1 to 2 new assets in form of either direct product related or technology that are synergistic and fits into our company profile and platform. And we do believe that's possible within this time frame. The 3 headlines that you can see on top of the slide basically is the core strategy elements we have, consolidating the existing business, and that we will close with this platform where consolidation means also to make a viable business and getting black numbers on the baseline for that part. Then the development of the platform and product, as you can see, is also in this. But all in all, the last part, the repositioning, I think we've taken big steps already, and that's where that ends. So looking forward, based on the successful mission, we will go in and, as I pointed out, focus on the core business and the revenues. We'll focus on AdaptVac and asset development and on new high-value assets in the manner I just mentioned. Beside that, we have the new markets, R&D, tools and diagnostics, and I have to point out that diagnostics today, and particularly in immuno-oncology, you don't develop a new immuno-oncology product without developing accompanying diagnostics. So this works in many ways for us, and I see that also as a strong value creation in case we can accompany our product development with diagnostics. Finally, we have started and we will continue to make strategic alliances that will consolidate us as a full discovery platform in vaccine, immune therapies, and diagnostics. With that, I will conclude and thank you all for your attention.
Tack så mycket. Har vi några frågor? Strategisk alliance. Kan du berätta lite mer om det? Vad är tanken bakom dem? Är de geografiskt avgränsade eller tittar ni över hela världen?
Nej, det här blir skandinaviskt då.
Varsågod.
Det blir definierat på innehåll. Innehåll, jag nämnde Intravac som är en väletablerad holländsk vaccinproducent, delvis public. De har egen djurfaciliteter, men mest av allt har de GMP-faciliteter, Good Manufacturing Practice. Man kan inte gå vidare in i klinik utan man går någonstans vart man har någon som har den funktionalitet. Och det betyder att vi söker ut partner som har kvalitet och vi har gjort en alignment. Vi har en nischteknologi, S2-cellen är inte det mest använda system. Så vi tar in partners vi vet som kan hantera det. Och så tar vi teknologi som lägger till det vi kan erbjuda kund också. Det betyder att vi kan gå ut och säga till en kund som säger att vi ska gärna ha gjort någonting. Och vi kan säga att vi kan ta den från idé till klinik, tidig klinik. Och så kan ni få resultaten. Det betyder att vi ser också innanför avancerad analytik. Och vi ser innanför delar av bioinformatik. Alla de grejer som tillsammans utgör en full plattform för vaccinutveckling, en modern vaccinutveckling av den typ som vi är intresserade i.
Okej, tack för det. Någon som vill passa på att ställa Sten en fråga? Nej. Har du någonting ytterligare själv att tillägga, någonting att lyfta fram, någonting speciellt som vi inte har hunnit diskutera hittills?
Jag tror jag kan säga att vi har ju en väldigt sammansatt business model, förrättningsmodell. Vart det är många ting som spelar tillsammans. Och jag tror att det här är en modell som är väldigt bra att bygga på. Och med det kapitalinskott vi just fått så vill jag säga att vi blir intressanta att följa i det kommande år. Så jag vill hoppas ni hänger på. Jag tällde lite tillbaks, om ni går in och ser på hur mycket release vi gjort över det sista året så går det långt över 20. Så det är inte för att det inte händer någonting. Och vi har full fart fram och jag tycker att vi har väldigt lovande möjligheter nu. Där vi sitter med något arbetskapital och alla de kontakter och existerande partner vi faktiskt har.
Så budskapet från Sten är klart. Är ni aktieägare, stanna kvar. Är ni inte, ta tillfället i akt och bekanta er med bolaget och se om det kanske finns anledning att följa bolaget och bli aktieägare härifrån. Stort tack!
Välkomna. Hej.